Hey everyone, to kick off this episode, the bonnet's all been prepped and ready to go, so we're going to hit it with some black base coat, quickly followed by a bit of clear. Well, that's the colour and clear done on the bonnet. A few specks of dust and that in there that I can see. You can also see that there's a bit of a run across the front there as well. That'll polish out eventually. I was actually considering flow coating it. I'll see what happens. May even do that yet. Doesn't come up too bad. The clear on that is the Genrock HS clear, and just normal harder in it. I think that's the only run. The rest of across the front looks okay. It's just come down off that edge. Bit of a wave. So this can be put aside now anyway. It'll harden up over the next few weeks, and I'll be able to denib anything that's in there. It's not a great deal. There's a bit through there. All in all, not too bad. Fairly happy with it. So now that the bonnet's all done, I'm going to give it a couple of weeks to harden up before I start any cut and polishing on it. And the next plan of attack is to work on the guards and put this front bumper bar together. It's all ready to go. I've just got to clean it up and glue it together. And this guard here, I've just noticed that there's a crack starting to come in through there, so I'll clean it up and put a bit of weld on it first. And I don't think it's the same on this side. Oh yeah, you can see something just starting through there, so I might have to hit it as well. And just tidy up the inside. Not too bad. Clean them up. Get rid of a lot of that chunky old seal that's on there. And the plan is to get all them back on the car and start lining it up down the sides and undercoat and sanding, blocking, etc. So it's out with the TIG welder now to fill up those little cracks that were starting to appear in the guards there. It's only running at a very, very low amperage. You might even be able to see in the machine there in the background that it's only running at 4 amps. This way you can get a little bit of filler weld in there and not blow through the whole guard. There wasn't much more to do on this apart from grind it back, and then the guards were ready to go back on the car so that I could line it up with everything else. So there was no other work done on it at this point in time, and this is actually the last bit of guards for this video, but it's sort of in the time sequence that I did everything in, so it sort of happens this way when you're working on cars. You'll do a little bit here and a little bit there. You'll put it together and pull it apart about 20 different times before everything's in the right place and it's ready to get finally painted. So we're up to the stage now where we're going to make these two bits of the front bumper into one. I've sanded back to the plastic there around the side and a few other key pieces. This isn't going to get glued onto it, but it gets joined. Mainly the glue goes from here around to there, and the same on the other side. It's held in place by a few screws there as well that are countersunk in. I'll just get filled over at the end of the day. And those there, remember they were quite long. Cut them off and just put a couple of holes in them. So we'll just make up a steel plate to join that up to the body. Stops that bottom bit flapping around. About an hour's work time once it's mixed, which proved to be heaps when I did the bonnet and the boot lid. I'm not doing up there because it actually doesn't touch underneath the front. It'll just get a bit of fiberglass infill and a little bit of filler there. Probably doesn't need to have it on both sides, on both parts I should say. Remember doing this last time and not being smart. Of course it's going to go everywhere, so actually get it seated down. You can see it as it goes up through the tube there, it actually starts mixing it. Dark stuff on one side and the lighter stuff on the other. By the time it gets to there, it's pretty much fully mixed. Right, all that wriggling around's probably spread the glue in there fairly well. Right, yeah. Fingers crossed that's all in the right place because it's not going anywhere. These ones may have to come out, but they'll hold it in place for now. Try and jam a bit down in there, a bit of a gap. Wipe the excess off a bit first, then I'll come back with some acetone on a rag to clean the rest of it up. All that area in there will get filled up with fiberglass from the inside. Same with this one. It probably should sit right up against there, but making the spoiler a touch lower won't hurt, and I just made the bar a bit more even all around. So this panel bond adhesive, it's got a divider plate down the middle of it. It must have two separate bags inside, and that pushes up and through the mixer. But once you've finished, they're still separate. So you just put the plug back in it and cap it off, and it's still ready to go again. Of course, there's no cleaning or reusing any of those. It's just spent now. So luckily when I got it, they asked for 3 things, so I've used 2 of them now. I've still got 1 left. But that's all the panels, the fiberglass stuff that needs to be bonded on the outside. We're still undecided yet. We may have to bond the little door panels back on because the fittings on those have long since broken. So yeah, there we go. Didn't come up too bad. What I'm going to do there is probably make a couple of steel pieces to come up and mount onto that. They're slightly, mightn't be easy to see there, but they're at slightly different angles. We'll make something work. And then down in there, I'm just going to bond that to there, just to sort of tie that together. That bottom half isn't really needed. Bumper bar brackets mount there, and these 2 up here. So that spot that you can see there that's open, I'll be able to get some fiberglass in through there, fill up that hole, and then just put some filler on the outside of it to blend it in. And a crack up here, which I'm probably going to have to dig out and weld up, plastic weld. It's all one piece now, so moving forward. So time now for a quick plastic repair on the bumpers there that were cracked at either end where the grille sits in it. Because it's got the HDT grill in it now, it's mounted up on the front steel panel that goes from one side to the other that holds the radiator in. So these here aren't really doing much, but couldn't just leave the cracks in there because the paint would be forever cracked in that spot there. So I just had to clean all the undercoat off it. The whole car came undercoated, but I would say probably 99.9% of that had to come off because none of it was any good, and it was starting to rust through it in places, and bits like this on the bumper bar, and that was sort of just getting in the way. So putting a bit of a groove in it now here, just so that there's a bit more of an edge there to weld up, so that you can you just basically get in there with a soldering iron like I've got here, melt it all back together, and I put in a bit of filler rod if it's needed. So just dabbing the end, it's like a chisel on the end of the soldering iron here, so it almost like sort of stitches the 2 sides back together by melting them and joining them, and then just throw a bit more filler rod in there until there's enough in there to sand back and keep going. These bumpers aren't really like the modern bumpers. They're more of a solid sort of plastic than a flexible one. There's nothing really structural up there anyway, it just holds the grill in. And I say that it really just locates the bottom part of the grill because the top part's bolted back to the front end steel. A bit of plastic filler on that, it'll be done. So all the screw holes are tidied up now and ready for a little bit of filler. The next thing I'm going to do is those gaps in there. I've just taped it up from this side. And we're going to fill in there with fiberglass and just run a little piece of fiberglass mat across that corner there too, which will just tie those in together, make it a little bit stronger. While that's all setting up, I'll come up with something to tie those together. That'll be it. None of this is for looks, it's all just for strength. Come back to that one once it starts to wet out a little bit. Of course, it never goes exactly where you want it to go. And trust me, I have no idea how this is going to work because I've never used these things before. Well, I have to be quick because it may be like the Q cells, and that once this stuff's in there, it's actually going to go off a lot quicker than I expected. That seems to be working fairly well. I think if I tip that over, it'd just run back out. Okay, everything else seems to be staying in place, so come back to that after lunch and see how it's gone. It's a couple of hours later and that fiberglass has all gone off now, so it's all in there fairly solid. Just trimmed that back a little bit further and made up that piece out of some very light zinc in it. Just down in there like that. I'll glue it in place. Once that's glued in, I'll just put a bit of filler around the edges and from there down and just tidy it up. Okay, so I've looked through all the videos that I have and don't appear to have anything else of this finishing off this bumper, so I'm just going to have to talk you through the rest of it with the aid of a whole heap of photos that I've taken. So carrying on from where I left off in the last voiceover, I've just glued these pieces together, a little bit of Zinc-and-Nail steel connecting up to the original plastic bumper, and just glued in with the same glue that I'd used on all the other fiberglass bits. So I've got no idea if this is actually the right way to do it, but it's the way I did it and it seemed to work out okay. So moving on from the gluing, ended up just putting a bit of filler in, sanding that back, a little bit of fine filler there to get the radius right around the base. On the inside I just sealed it up with a bit of black Sikaflex to make sure it was all waterproof. Going on to the openings on the front of the bumper there, just hitting them with a bit of fine filler and then sanding them back. These were the areas that I showed where I was filling behind it before with the fiberglass. There happened to be a little bit of a gap there between the fiberglass and the old plastic bumper, so just fill them up. On this kind of bumper, it's they're a solid plastic, so it's not like a modern flexible plastic bumper. So the old just a regular filler seems to work fine on this. It doesn't have to be flexible to suit. And this is the area that I showed before underneath the plastic repair, the little bit of plastic welding that I did. Once again, just a little bit of fine filler on that and sanded back, and that was all ready to go then. So this is the bumper pretty much ready to go. There was a few little spots on the new fiberglass that needed filling in with a bit of fine filler. These little areas were a little bit low on the original fiberglass, so I've just hit them with a bit of fine filler, and there's a few little other imperfections in the moulding, so just tidied all those up. So they are original HDT mouldings for them. There we go, it's all sanded back, ready for the 2-pack primer. So where you saw it before was sitting down on just a couple of trestles. Now I had to make up this stand so that I could hold it up in the air and get it all different angles to paint everything all at once, seeing as the underside sort of gets painted as well. So just knock this up at a bit of gal tubing. Hopefully I can use it again in the future for other things. And this is it sitting there. It's had a coat of it's adhesion promoter, which helps any paint stick to plastics. And then once that's dry, it only takes a few minutes to dry. Just hit it with the 2-pack high build primer and a light coat on the inside. I didn't go overboard on the inside. I just put it on there so that I could paint it black, which you'll see in a little bit time. Just to tidy it up, really. Nothing spectacular on the inside. So move on. The inside's painted just with a single stage. It's a satin black 2K Colourthane satin black. So once again, not too worried about the finish there, but it's just come up nice and tidy. So the only thing that was needed, there was a couple of little spots that were still low after the primer, so just hit them with a little bit more fine filler. Only a couple of little spots there, it wasn't too much. Those there were just where the screws went through. There's still a little bit of imperfection there. And then to cover them up, just with a bit of single pack primer. It's a General Paints primer. I think 9000 is the number there. So it's just an air dry primer, but it works well underneath any 2K top coat. So finally we move on to the black, and here it is just in the base coat stage at this time. Still a little bit of gloss there, but then we hit it with the gloss and you can see it stands out pretty well. I wasn't too unhappy about the way that it came out. There's a couple little bits of dust in it here and there. It's just only did a local sand out and polish in those areas to get it finished. So anyway, that's about it for now. I'm hopefully going to get the rest of these videos out a little bit quicker than I did this one. I've had a lot of stuff happening in the last few weeks and months, so I've still got lots of video for this to edit, and hopefully I can bring it to you sooner rather than later. Anyway, that's enough for me for now. Catch us later.